The City of Evanston and the Village of Skokie have joined together to sponsor a celebration of the 20th anniversary of the signing of the Americans with Disabilities Act. I hope that you were able to make it to the Skokie Library last night to see the films and view the art show. The paintings were created by artists who work with Art for Life. And actually, the exhibit will still be up throughout the month of August, so you'll have an opportunity to see it if you didn't get over there. As chairperson of the Disability Committee of the Evanston Commission on Aging, I want to welcome you to the second part of our celebration, an afternoon of roundtable and panel discussion on topics related to disability issues. And before we get started, I just really want to make note, events such as this happen because of the efforts of many people. I first of all want to thank the Levy Center for hosting our event and the North Shore Retirement Hotel for providing drinks and snacks for us. I also want to thank members of the Evanston Disability Committee, Juanita Davis and Brian Barnes. Juanita Davis is with Disability Services from the Village of Skokie. Brian is the ADA Compliance Officer and Disability Specialist for the City of Evanston. And without their ideas and hard work, this kind of event is not possible. We have a full afternoon planned, 1 hour of roundtable discussion on 4 topics: Social Security, transportation, life planning, and life transitions. Life planning includes personal and medical care, as well as financial planning. Life transitions, we'll talk about the transition from high school to adulthood. Experts in each of these areas will discuss the topics and answer your questions. And you will have an opportunity at the half-hour mark to move from one table to another if more than one topic interests you. The afternoon will conclude with a panel discussion. Panelists include representatives from local government, business, as well as the disability community. They will be discussing issues that are important to all 3 communities, including jobs, housing, and accessibility. And Brian Barnes will be moderating that discussion. We are especially honored to have both the Mayor of Skokie, George Van Dusen, and the Mayor of Evanston, Elizabeth Tisdale, here to present the opening remarks for our day of celebration. Mayor Van Dusen and Mayor Tisdale have each lived and raised their families in their respective communities for over 30 years. Both have been active members in their communities, dedicated to improving the quality of life for residents. Mayor Van Dusen served as trustee of the Village of Skokie from 1984 until he was appointed mayor in 1999. While a trustee, he served as the village delegate to the Northwest Municipal Conference and as Northwest Municipal Conference president in 2007. Mayor Tisdale served for 12 years on the Evanston Township High School Board of Education, starting in 1989, and that included 2 years as president of the board. From 2003 until 2009, she served as the 7th Ward Alderman, and in April of 2009 was elected as our mayor. I was not really quite sure of the protocol in terms of who to introduce first, so I'm going to make it an executive decision and invite our guest, Mayor George Van Dusen of the Village of Skokie, to be the first speaker. I think this is a better mic.
Thank you, Susan. Can everybody hear me okay? Thank you. I'd like to thank my friend and colleague, Mayor Tisdale, for a visa to come across the borders today and to be with you. It really is a pleasure to have an opportunity to be here again and to see this magnificent facility. It never surprises me whenever I come here It's always a lot of activity here at the Levy Center. And I remember the controversy, Susan and I were talking about it beforehand, when the Levy Center was moving from downtown Evanston to its current location. And there was some question about, could you possibly have a better center? Would it be conducive to everybody? And what I think is so wonderful about this center is that it is intergenerational. And it brings together young people, people with disabilities, people of my generation, the older ones, and we can all learn to appreciate each other. One of the things that I especially wanted to remark on today is that the ADA has transformed the United States of America in a most positive way. In the obvious way, it's made public accommodations accessible for anybody who has a disability. And that in and of itself, as a right, is something that deserves celebration. But I think in addition to that, ADA has helped to educate the rest of us as to the problems that people with disabilities have. People with disabilities are not hidden off in the shadows today. They're in our community, they are part of our lives, and they are welcome contributors to our lives. And for that, I want to thank all of you for what you do in making ADA a reality for all of our communities. I think it's fair to say that Evanston and Skokie have been leaders in the state of Illinois in making our public accommodations accessible to any and everybody with a disability. So it's a pleasure to be with you today, and I thank you so much for everything that you do for both of our communities. Susan, thank you.
Thank you for being with us, and I think I will pass the baton on now to Mayor of Evanston, Mayor Tisdale.
Thank you very much. George, I sent you the visa, but I never got the fee for it. I'd like to welcome you all, and I'd like to talk a little bit about the ADA and what it has meant to Evanston. It has transformed Evanston in many ways. There are curb cuts, doors open now, push of a button, doors that used to be closed to people. There are braille signs. So the ADA has made a significant impact in our community. But further than that, there's a spirit of the ADA that is alive and well in our community. When King Lab students were designing a playground, they designed one that was ADA, that was accessible for far more than it required one piece of equipment. And one of the things that the students, this is a K-8 school, requested is they wanted enough space on the sidewalk so that they could walk alongside a friend in a wheelchair, so that they didn't have to walk behind a friend in a wheelchair. They wanted to treat their friends in a wheelchair just the way that everyone else was treated. And that's the spirit of the ADA that has taken heart in the young people, and they are not turning back. There's another playground in Evanston that the rec department is sitting going to rehab, and parents of a young boy wanted it named in memory of their son, and they wanted every piece of playground equipment there to be handicapped accessible. And now at Lighthouse Beach, Noah's Playground for Everyone is handicapped accessible. Every single piece of equipment there is handicapped accessible. It's a beautiful place. And once a year, it's full not only of children, but of adults. And we all clean out. I even weed, probably pull up the wrong things, but anyway, we all weed and we plant plants to repair whatever has not made it through the winter. And that is another symbol in Evanston, not of the ADA, but of the spirit of the ADA, which has gone on beyond the legislation itself. And there's one more, although I could talk about a lot of Evanston places I'm very proud of. There's one more. There's an elevator and that's an elevator that nobody could afford. It's way too expensive an elevator, and if anybody could afford it, a not-for-profit couldn't possibly afford it, but they did. They built that elevator because a resident in a wheelchair complained about accessibility at Family Focus, and Family Focus is devoted to inclusion and equality, and so they raised all the money they needed to have a brand new, beautiful elevator at the Family Focus building. So as I look around Evanston and as I worry about the state of our economy and the recession and what it's going to do to people, I think about the groups that have worked with the city to make things better, and groups like Family Focus who have done it entirely on their own. And I know that with our citizens, not only is the ADA a lot of this legislation, but the spirit of the ADA that goes on beyond the legislation itself is alive and well in Evanston. So thank you all for being here today, and thank you for keeping that spirit alive.
Okay, thank you. Well, we are going to now break up into groups. We have 4 tables set up with speakers for different topics. For Social Security, Carl Gillespie is here as a representative. We have from the RTA, Michael Vandercreek. Do I have that correct? Yes. And Rocky Donahue with PACE. So for those of you who are interested in transportation questions or issues, they're available on the table up here in the front. In the back corner there, we have Nancy Flowers, social worker who has spent her career working with vulnerable adults. She was the former ombudsman of the city of Evanston and supervised the disability services, as well as Eric Parker, who's an attorney with Strodis and Baird chartered. Eric has been practicing law for 17 years and specializes in working with elderly, vulnerable adults and injury victims. So he is a former member of the Evanston Commission on Aging and a longtime Evanston resident. And they will be speaking on life planning issues, so both involving care as well as financial planning. And in the table in the back corner, Jane Doyle, who is certainly a disability activist and advocate and executive director of Center for Independent Futures, will be available and talking about the issues of life transitions. So we give everyone, a few minutes to move to the table that interests you. You will have, we ask that I will announce that at the half-hour mark after the roundtables have started, and if at that point you'd like to move to a different table because you have an interest in another topic, please feel free at that point to get up and move. So with that, I think we should start our roundtables.
ADA compliant. So while most people may think of ADA service as the smaller bus service, we carry a number of individuals with disabilities on our big bus system as well. Actually promote our big bus system. In some regards, we believe it's because we've invested a lot of capital to make it accessible for the disabled. We believe in some cases it's more convenient and easier to use at times than the paratransit system. So that's just kind of my overview. I really came because what I'd like to do is get questions from you and learn maybe some of the challenges you're facing as it relates to public transportation or PACE service directly, and see if there's ways we can make it better. Maybe it's a way of just misinformation or sometimes we believe it's working. We have every day 1,500 vehicles on the road. between our big buses, our little ADA vehicles, our van pools, 1,500 vehicles. If I don't hear, I assume they're all working. I assume they're where they're supposed to be and they're going the way they're supposed to go. So it's important we have meetings like this so we can get that feedback of things that are going on in the community. We serve 241 communities. We serve a service area the size of the state of Connecticut. We go from the Wisconsin border to the north to past Joliet on the south to the Indiana border on the east past Aurora and Elgin, beyond Kane County to the west. So while I understand it's all about me and we're here in Evanston and it's all about Evanston today, we have to think of it from a very regional perspective. So while sometimes decisions we make might be best for the region, don't often maybe work for a local community, but it doesn't mean we don't want to hear what the challenges that you're facing. So that's kind of my 5 minute of shtick. I'll let Michael kind of piggyback here with the RTA.
All right. Again, my name is Michael Vandekreek, and I'm the accessibility specialist at the Regional Transportation Authority. And sometimes people don't know the difference between RTA, CTA, PACE, Metro, what all these different organizations are. And what RTA really is a planning and financial oversight organization for CTA, PACE, and Metro. And so while PACE does the direct service in terms of providing the fixed route service and the paratransit service they provide, what RTA does is we do some of the certification for the paratransit program. We run fare programs for the region to assist people with disabilities and seniors with reduced fare or free rides, depending on the situation. And we also do some travel training initiatives at the RTA that relate specifically to transportation. What I brought is a packet of information from the RTA that also covers information that's applicable to PACE as well, that explains the different services that we have at the RTA for individuals with disabilities and seniors. And the first and most important, in my opinion, is the system map. Because like Rocky was saying, is that, our system, the CTA, PACE, and Metro system, is accessible. And we really celebrate the spirit of the ADA in terms of back when ADA was being developed, there were so many advocates that were pushing for the system to become accessible with lifts and ramps on buses and, and elevators at stations and to make sure that people could use the system. And so the original idea of the ADA was to provide accessibility of the system that already exists. And we're very happy to say that 100% of our bus fleet throughout the whole system is accessible now, and all of the key stations on our Metro and L lines are accessible as well. So we really encourage people to be using this system. So I threw in here a map so that people can be educating each other on the system and accessibility, and each stop is marked on the different lines that are accessible on these maps. So that's why I threw this in this packet. Some of the other stuff I threw in there is our fare programs. We have 3 different fare programs at the RTA that apply to people with disabilities. One is our reduced fare program that applies to anyone that has a disability. So all you have to do is have a doctor certify that you have a disability and you get the reduced fare card. And that is good on CTA, PACE, and Metro to pay around half fare. Metro, it's not exactly half fare, but pretty much throughout most of the region, it's about half fare on all of your trips on buses and trains, regular fixed route. Then there's also the People with Disabilities Ride Free program, which is linked to the Illinois Circuit Breaker program. So anyone who is eligible for Circuit Breaker and is found eligible and is receiving Circuit Breaker benefits can then get a free ride on all transit as well, CTA, PACE, and Metro, fixed route. So that's another brochure that I threw in so people have that information. And then last is anyone over the age of 65 is free rides on CTA, PACE, and Metro. So there's really some strong incentives to be using fixed route. It is definitely a less expensive system than our paratransit, which is the next brochure in there. Paratransit is $3 each way for the trip, and it is eligible for anyone that has a disability that prevents them from being able to use the fixed route system. So if you have a disability but can still use the fixed route, should be using the fixed route. But if there is something about the disability or the barriers in the environment that would prevent someone from using the fixed route system, this service is available. And this brochure explains that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, what about people who say they could use the fixed route system in good weather but have trouble in the they could apply for the paratransit, right?
Right. In this brochure, it explains how to apply for paratransit. But to answer that question specifically, I will. There is a certification process. So when people want to apply for paratransit because they can't take fixed route or because of weather issues, they can apply for the service. We find people eligible based on what they can and can't do, and weather is part of that. Now, the classic example of that is someone who uses a mobility device. Getting around in snow is really difficult in the wintertime. Not impossible all the time, but difficult. So for those situations, they can be certified for certain types of weather conditions, like snow and ice and temperatures. Sometimes temperatures are difficult, extreme heat or extreme cold for certain types
So
of
there
disabilities.
are conditional kind of.
Conditional eligibility exists, yes. You get coded in the system now as conditional eligibility.
Right. So then what happens is that we do the RTA determines the eligibility, and then PACE then implements the service. So then, like, there are certain date fields that like for winter and summer months that are being screened and by PACE, and then a lot of this also is by the customer's report right now too. So we some of it is we expect that people will honor their own certifications and really pay attention to what their certification is, and and know when they should be taking the bus and when they should be calling for paratransit rides.
Okay,
So,
great, thank
yeah,
you.
based on the certification they're given by the RTA. Yeah. And of course, I threw this in here too because people are always asking about it, and it's about if someone applies for paratransit and they feel their certification is wrong, there is a brochure that explains the appeals process, which is also done by the RTA. We do appeals for certification if someone feels their certification decision is incorrect. And then also, if someone signs up for paratransit, they're eligible to participate in travel training, which is something I also very strongly suggest to folks. Because one of the biggest reasons people don't take don't take fixed route is, one, because of either not knowing how the system works, two, because of fear of using the system because they don't know how it works or they're not acclimated to the system. And other is weather conditions, of course. But what we do is we take people out on the system and we teach them everything they would need to know to use the system for what their purposes are for using it. For people with physical disabilities, we'll do a general overview of the accessibility of the system, show them how to identify accessible stops and stations, how to use the buses, how to get secured on buses, how to use the trains. For people with cognitive disabilities, we actually go out and practice specific trips that they're going to be taking frequently with them and literally take the trip with them over and over and over again until they get the trip down. So we are doing our best in this region to try to make public transportation as user-friendly and accessible to individuals as possible.
And this is accessible to everybody?
Anyone who's signed up for the ADA Paratransit program. So if you've signed up, then we're saying, okay, I know you want this ADA Paratransit, but we would really like the opportunity to teach you how to use fixed route as well. So that's why I'm here today, is just to explain all of this and then ask any questions.
Participation and utilization of these services?
The travel training program specifically, if that's what you're asking, what we do is at 6 months after they've completed the travel training, we call them to see if they're using the fixed route system and ask if there's anything that we could do more to help them. And at 1 year we follow up again and we ask them, how's it going? Are you using the fixed route system? Are you encountering any difficulties? Do you need more training at this time? So we do that.
Has there been studies done as far as just general utilization within the system, as far as, I mean, you've invested a lot in various devices. Do you have a sense as to how frequently they're used and how?
Well, we track the technology we have on our fixed route vehicles. We're able to track for those individuals who are riding either with a reduced fare card or with, I'm sorry to grab this out of you, or with the people with disabilities ride free card. These are like swipe cards. So when they put it into the fare box, that the technology allows us, we know how many people are using it. I'm not sure we can identify who that person is, but we know the routes they're riding on, and we know where they're getting on. We don't know where they're obviously getting off because we only have you when you get on. We don't have where you board and put your card through as well. We also have when the drivers lower the lift on a bus and an individual is using the lift, that also gets counted through the technology of the system. So we know how many lift trips we're providing on a daily basis, weekly basis, annual basis, and how many trips we're providing for individuals who ride free as well as individuals who ride with the half fare card. Now, what I can tell you is ridership is increasing tremendously in the disabled community on the Disabled Ride Free. Since that program started, I want to say in April or May of 2009. It's been in place.
It's that new.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
No, the program's been around since before 2009, but he's talking about stats since 2009.
well,
Oh,
the
no.
Disabled Ride Free came into effect.
Oh, you're right.
Like in 2009. Prior to that, it was always the reduced fare.
Oh, okay.
Has always
Right,
been
right.
around,
That's-
but
right.
but since the Disabled Ride Free came in 2009, ridership is like going through the roof, monthly, going through the roof. That's a really, we believe, a really good thing.
On the regular routes
On
as
the
well
regular
as
route. Well, no,
paratransit? On the regular routes.
And paratransit ridership this year is actually down from last year, and mainline transportation is up. So I can't tell you it's all a result of being able to ride free. There's various factors, but we view that from our world as a good sign. The mainline system is in most cases much more convenient, because the paratransit system, you have to schedule your trip a day ahead of time. So your friend calls you and says, let's go to the movies. Well, I can't do that because I don't have a trip scheduled. In the suburbs primarily, in the city of Chicago and, well, Evanston being a suburb, you guys have pretty much great transit because of CTA, PACE, and Metro is all here in Evanston. But if you get to some other suburbs, Orland Park, Crystal Lake, Joliet, bus service may stop at 5 o'clock at night, and therefore ADA service is complementary to the mainline system. So the ADA service then stops at 5 o'clock in the evening. So it's in a lot of cases the mainline system is much more convenient, not only because it's kind of, you can do it day of. In a lot of cases, it's more direct. One thing that passengers at times forget with our ADA system, it is public transit. Therefore, it's a shared ride system. It doesn't necessarily mean we're picking you up and taking you directly to where you want to go. We may go 5-6 blocks east of where you want to go to pick somebody else up. And then we may come 3 blocks west of where you were going to drop somebody off, then go to your destination. I liken it to the airlines if you're going to go to Chicago to San Diego, airlines may often stop in Minneapolis and then Salt Lake City and then ultimately get to San Diego. And why they do that is they don't have to send 3 planes. They can now drop off people from Chicago who wanted to go to Minneapolis, Salt Lake, as well as San Diego. It's the same concept. Instead of having to send 3 buses out there, we are able to group those trips. A lot of times passengers don't feel that's very convenient. Unfortunately, as a public agency, we have an obligation not only to the customer, but to the taxpayer who's helping fund this system to make it as efficient and doable within the limited dollars that we have. So,
Have you been in your planning, were you able to acquire numbers as to what the universe of the population total that you could be serving and what kind of participation you're experiencing?
you mean the disabled community?
Yes, let's just talk about that.
Well, I think as it relates to the ADA service, not all disabilities qualify. As Michael had said, your disability has to prohibit you from accessing the mainline system. So when you get certified, we're not certifying you have a disability. We're not questioning if you have a disability or not. The question comes in, does your disability prohibit you from going out and getting on the bus or getting on the train? You probably know this, and correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding right now in the region is Cook County, DuPage, Kane, Lake, and McHenry and Will. So the 6 counties, Cook, DuPage, Kane, Lake, McHenry, Will. There's roughly 40,000 individuals that are certified for the ADA service. Now, I believe the disabled population, the disabled community is much greater than 40,000. So there are 40,000 individuals who are currently eligible to use the ADA system. Now there's individuals, as we mentioned, who aren't certified that use the big bus system.
But then that 40,000, you must have a pretty good indication as to how many actually use it. At
Well,
what
we
kind of
do.
frequency.
We have we provide and we provide through various forms of what we call service for the disabled as relates to ADA. Besides what ADA in the suburbs, we have a van pull program that we do with agencies and workshops that work with the disabled community. Even though it's not the traditional door-to-door pickup, it's the agency works with us with a van to pick individuals up. We also we work with our local communities. We serve 241 communities, so we work with those communities and townships, and they at times will partner with PACE and pick up individuals with disabilities for us as well. All told, we do about 3.1 million trips in the city of Chicago on our ADA service, and we do about 3.7 million trips in the suburbs when you take ADA, paratransit, and our van pull program. So region-wide, almost 7 million trips a year. So 40,000 eligible people taking roughly 7 million trips a year.
That's huge.
It's a lot. We do 7,000 trips a day in the city of Chicago and about 7,000 trips a day in the suburbs. In the suburbs is a little bit different because it's not just the ADA service. It's also van pull, it's also paratransit. So
And you're talking about you're not including the main line?
our main line, we do 115,000 trips a day, PACE.
But
Not CTA, not Metro, just
that
PACE.
7 million was ADA.
7 million was ADA. We do about 40 million trips a year on our big bus system for all walks of life, not just individuals with disabilities.
Wow, that's great numbers. Came out of your head.
I appreciate you saying that because we'd like it to be higher.
Well, I mean, it's. I really appreciate you having a handle on it.
Oh.
You know, it's nice. That's very significant.
So you when you first sat down, you had said you were hearing from some people that something about PACE, and then you didn't finish
Actually,
your thought. So
no, my thought was that years ago, about 3 years ago, we had a forum, an open forum on transportation, and we had representatives like yourselves from RTA, PACE, CTA, and this was, as I said, 3 years ago, and a lot of the questions from the audience at the time were about routes, how to direct questions to PACE or to RTA or CTA, but a lot of the people in the audience were people with disabilities, and they were riding PACE. The paratransit service, I think, was mostly what they were referring to, and just questions about how to, if they were having a hard time with scheduling or with any of the services for any of the reasons they might, how to direct their concerns to PACE, and if they didn't get an answer, then how to continue to communicate. Because I think a lot of the people, again, at the time, and I'm talking about an audience that's not only not here, but it was something 3 years ago. So this, I'm just going to say, if this problem were to persist and is still something that people are concerned about, what kind of levels of do you suggest to people to attempt to go through any, and not just an appeal process for the certification, but actually,
for service delivery.
Exactly.
I'm going to tell you that we have a goal of we would like to have 0 complaints. That's our goal. I'm going to tell you we don't achieve our goal. I'm going to tell you, while it's our goal, I'm not sure we'll ever achieve our goal. The truth of the matter is, I can't promise you there's always a human element. A driver isn't going to be rude. I can't promise you that a snowstorm isn't going to cause a person to be picked up late. I'm not going to tell you a new driver may not get lost in a neighborhood he's not familiar with. But we do have steps in place when we get complaints. We have a dedicated customer service center. They're actually located in South Holland, and it's and I'll give you these cards. There's numbers here to call and issues. But you call our customer service department, and they enter your complaint and I'm not as technologically savvy as some, so forgive me if I'm not getting the computer thing, but it's all computer based. They enter it into the computer, and that gets sent to an appropriate area. Hey, Mrs. Jones says her bus was late. I need you to do an investigation. Every complaint gets investigated by an appropriate individual. It gets routed back to customer relations, who personally calls the customer. We don't send form letters. We personally call the customer back, and we tell them, yeah, we investigated, here's what we found. In some cases, you're right, and we're sorry, and here's, hopefully it won't happen in the future. In some cases, I'm sorry, ma'am, our investigation showed the vehicle was there on time, or whatever. Statisticals, which I can tell you is we do 7,000 trips a day in the city of Chicago. We average 20 complaints a day. So 99.6% of the trips go well enough that they don't call and complain. We average 600 complaints a month on the ADA service, and why I say it's about 20 a day, because 30 days in a month. We get more complaints during the week because we have more service on the street in the week than we do in the weekend. But average 600 a month. I can tell you as little ago as 2006, 2007, and this may have been around the time of your meeting. I don't know. We were averaging 1,600 complaints a month. We have vastly improved the service.
That's very interesting.
We have vastly made changes. Now, our goal is 0. We're still at 600. I would like that number to be 500. I'd like that number to be 400.
So
and we're working
it's gone
hard.
down from 1,600 to 600 in approximately.
We have made a
3
lot
years.
of improvements. When I think it's safe. Well, not safe. I think I want to make sure everybody's aware. We never did the service in the city of Chicago prior to 2006. The legislature, the Illinois General Assembly, took that from CTA and gave it to us. Gave it to PACE. July 1, 2006, made us responsible for the delivery of service, made RTA responsible for the funding of the service and the oversight of the service, but we deliver the service in the city of Chicago. When we took it over, we heard a variety of issues. We worked hard to address those issues. We believe we've improved the service. Most of the issues that were around in 06 are gone, and we have a whole different set of issues that we're dealing with now, and I'm sure we'll correct those, and we'll have then a whole new set of issues.
Yes, always new
But
ones.
I'm not saying CTA bad, PACE good. I'm saying we've worked really hard though in our mind to make the service better.
So that number is really for the city of Chicago. and
Yes.
not the
In
other
the
counties.
suburbs, we average, again, in the suburbs, in suburban Cook, DuPage, Kane, Lake, McHenry, and Will, 241 communities, we average 32 complaints a month, one a day. And 200, not one a day in Evanston, one a day in the whole region.
It's,
But we've been running the service in the suburbs since 1991, when the Americans with Disabilities Act became law, and I think in 1991 we probably had a lot of complaints. But I think we've perfected. I like to say that I believe is one of the reasons the legislature gave us the service. They saw the efficiencies and the delivery of service that we were doing in the suburbs and wanted us to bring that model into the city. And we're starting to. It's not going to happen overnight, but we're working on it. And in all fairness, in 2006, when we took the service over, we were doing 2.5 million trips a year. Today, we're doing 3.1 million trips. 500,000 more trips a year being provided in the city of Chicago. That means more access. That means individuals being able to schedule their trips and get around. And again, it's not because of like typical transit. People are riding it because they don't want to pay the high gas. You have to be certified, and that certification number has remained relatively at 40,000. So we've just arguably have improved the service and are now doing more trips for a variety of reasons.
How is the funding looking? what are your balance
We
of revenue sources?
we face a variety of challenges, and funding is one of those challenges. We were fortunate in 2008, the legislature increased sales tax in the region for all of transit, not just for ADA, but it was the first time in the history of this region, the legislature dedicated some of that sales tax exclusively for ADA. They dedicated $100 million every year for the service. The service basically, though, is costing us today $107 million. And so while it was great, they dedicated $100 million, we're still faced with a challenge as it relates to funding, but it's not unlike we're facing a challenge just like most units of government and most businesses today. The economy is taking its toll on us. We're funded by sales tax. Just to give you real life numbers, we, Pace, lost $29 million from 2008 to 2009. Not because we did anything wrong, not because of a management decision. Sales tax declined that much just for our agency, 29 million. That 100 million for ADA was 100 million in 2008. Because of sales tax in 2009, it was like 89 million, almost 90 million dollars. We lost $10 million for this service. Not because of anything we as an agency did or bad management. The economy has taken its toll on us as well. So we've had to do some tough things. We've had to cut back on fixed route bus service. Employees have had to take pay freezes, and actually you may arguably say some pay cuts because they're required to take furlough days, where at Pace all employees had to take 5 days off without pay. So we've had to pay more for health care. We've cut out maybe what are essential to the organization, but not as essential. Our marketing budgets were slashed. Our out-of-region travel and training expenses were slashed. Just no different than other municipalities have had to do, or private businesses, or even homeowners when they've had to cut back. So we're faced with those challenges too.
And what about purchasing new equipment or buses and running buses? How does that fit into the budget?
Well,
Not fit into the budget.
capital is always an issue in broad terms. And again, I'm going to tell you numbers that I'm probably going to be lying to you because I'm trying to remember these off the top of my head. But the region itself needs $1 billion a year just to maintain its existing infrastructure. Most of that's for the rail system, CTA rail and Metro rail.